So Oscar Isaac is currently in the press tour for Frankenstein alongside Jacob Elordi.
What?
What?
Frankenstein?
Is it
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein?
Yeah.
For Dula Peep.
There you go.
starring
I thought you were
Jacob
doing it on
Elordi.
purpose. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Frankenstein.
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah.
both. And he just did an interview with GQ where they didn't really talk about the movie. They just talked about Oscar Isaac's feelings about Disney. He's worked with Disney a lot over the years. He was a Star Wars actor in the sequel trilogy, as well as Andor, where he made the return, ultimately proving himself wrong that the only reason he would return to Star Wars is if he needed to buy another house. And he recorded this interview a while back, evidently, because he said that he is not interested in working with Disney until they prove that they are not fascist.
Yeah.
After the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel's show, this is what they said in the full context. So he first off answered for that earlier comment from 2020. You said once that you would never return to Star Wars unless you needed another house. He said, yeah, that was a real likable quote. You know, people ask you things, you say stuff, you don't really think about it that much. I said a slightly dickish thing. And then they say, you've softened on this in recent years. You said, well, maybe, why not? He said, yeah, I'd be open to it. Although right now I'm not so open to working with Disney. But if they can kind of figure it out and, you know, not succumb to fascism, that would be great. And then they added this editor's note. This interview was conducted 2 days after ABC and Disney suspended production of Jimmy Kimmel Live in response to comments Kimmel made following the death of Charlie Kirk. Kimmel was back on air 4 days after this conversation took place.
The sad part is even with the editor's note, it doesn't matter because celebrities, they just complain about fascism all the time.
I believe he would have said it now,
They
too.
hem and they haw about fascism all the time, so it didn't even really need an editor's note.
Right.
It didn't.
Yeah, and, you know, Oscar Isaac sounds like somebody who's not getting calls and is mad about it.
No, he's getting calls. He's getting
From Disney, I
Oh, from Disney. Well, this is one of those things. Are they doing Moon Knight, another season of Moon Knight? I don't think he really needs the work from them. Like he's actually worked for both of their main franchises, unless they're going to hire him for Toy Story 5 where he plays the iPad. Like he's done Star Wars, he's done Marvel, and he doesn't really need to do more with Disney. It's actually more befitting of him. It seems like from everything that we've seen is like you get more, like you make more money when you do the Netflix stuff anyways. That's what it feels like. They get bigger paychecks when they work for Netflix. And certainly one of the complaints people have right now is that people who saw Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein are saying it's one of the most beautiful movies they've seen. And the fact that it's not getting a theater release is a tragedy. And they're very upset with Netflix because they're very committed to this business model that doesn't see, you know, full-scale theater releases for their films. And it's getting lauded and it's getting a lot of praise. Does he really care? He's like, look, we got like 50 Frankenstein movies. I'm going to collect the paycheck and move on. And just so happens I get to work with a legendary director.
I think they should have released it in theaters given the success of Nosferatu.
I mean, that's so Eggers said recently, he says like he'll never direct a movie made in the modern age. He's like, the idea of filming a cell phone fills me with dread. The idea of filming a car makes me want to die or something like that. I'm like making that part. He said those two things. I don't think he said those two examples. Like he said those two examples, like cell phones and cars. Like he doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to make movies that are from a different time.
We have a 20 from Brian Bledsoe. The definition of sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. Since there is physical exertion, albeit minimal, I voted 51% yes.
People get, look, anybody here who has played video games for any length of time, when you're done, those thumbs are hurting, bro. Okay, you put in the effort.
Okay.
Put in the effort.
But listen, podcasting involves some level of physical exertion.
Yeah, but it's not.
Right?
But it's not. We're not competing against each other.
I'm sure that there could be elements of competition in podcasts.
It would have
all podcasts are competing against other podcasts.
No, you know how we'd have to do it? We'd have to have a Stream Deck competition to see who can change the
yeah,
settings.
Is operating the Stream Deck a sport?
Yes.
Is that a sport? Is this a sport? You're watching it right now?
If the goal is to see who can change the most screens by a specific time, then yes, it's a sport.
That's BS. Video games are not a sport.
Okay,
guys.
continue.
Anyway, this reply said, make your company gay as hell, literally funding child trans chop shops, vax max every single employee and customer, still not woke enough.
Yeah.
It's never woke enough for Oscar Isaac. And this reminded me that Jimmy Kimmel and his wife are still not over the suspension that happened in September. They still have not emotionally recovered from it. It appears it was very traumatizing for them. And they were recently venting about how they've had to end friendships and family relationships over their support for Donald Trump because it's personal now. It's not just politics. It's family loyalty in their mind.
Yeah, here we go.
Immediate family.
This is Jimmy Kimmel's wife.
Yes.
They did not vote for Donald Trump.
Okay.
They did the first time, a few of them. We flipped them the second time. It's weird. When Donald Trump was first elected, I was so upset. We all were. But I remember thinking, I understand it because I grew up in a very conservative Republican house. I mean, I bought my dad a Rush Limbaugh tie in high school.
I guess we haven't gotten to the Labubu part of the story yet, but I believe this maybe a tiny bit more than I believe the Labubu story, but we'll continue.
I voted Republican straight ticket, and that's what I was told.
So you allowed other people to tell you how to vote, and that was a good thing somehow, and then you learned a different way to vote, but now you're trying to use the same tactic they used on you on them? That seems fishy.
Woman
to
moment.
do. And then I left St. Louis, Missouri, and I met people from different backgrounds, and I started to understand different things and different needs and different people. And there's like a little bit of sympathy I have for people in my family that I feel are kind of being deliberately misinformed every day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Not kind of.
Yeah.
You know.
They're
Not
deliberately
kind of.
being misinformed every day.
I'm sorry, but I covered this. I did a video today on all this, and like I'll just start retreading territory on all of it. I didn't do that intentionally. I didn't know we were going to cover this on the show today. I got relatively angry about all of this. These people are trash. I don't believe them 90% of the time when they tell these stories. This I believe. The story about Jimmy Kimmel's kids, unless the kid comes out and says it themselves, and even then, I don't put them above coaching their kids to stay super shape because these people are demonic. In a lot of ways. And there was a Colbert clip that came out today where he said his job in late night TV, where his job is supposedly to be a comedian, I guess that's what they are by trade,
interviewer,
is to tell you how to think about politics because they're the ones who pay attention. They're like that friend who pays close attention to politics and then they tell you about it. And then he says, and I'm not even kidding, he says, and it's more important that I tell you how it makes me feel. So it's your job as the viewer to let these scumbags in suits tell you how to feel because you're so dead inside and brain dead that not only do you not know how to think, you don't even know how to process emotions properly. So you should let coastal elite scumbags tell you what the proper governance is in this country and then tell you how to feel about that. These people are awful. Sorry, let's continue.
And they believe it. But it hurts me so much because of the personal relationship I now have where my husband is out there fighting this man. And to me, them voting for Trump is them not voting for my husband. And
your husband isn't running for office and is 110% possible that the causes in which your husband champions don't align with the things that they want to see done. My main point when I did that video is I brought up a recent tweet from Clint, like the dude who does podcaster.
Clint Russell?
Clint Russell. And I was like, he had a list of complaints about Trump. Very, very reasonable. H-1B visas, 600,000 Chinese student visas, going to jail for anti-Semitism and all this other stuff that people have very real complaints, none of which are fascist. And if you want me to believe for even a second that somehow the people I'm exposed to are less informed than you, continue, sorry.
in our family. And I unfortunately have kind of lost relationships with people in my family.
That's because you're a bad person. Because you can't allow people to think differently than you and vote differently than you because they have different priorities in life.
Because of it. It's like This is not just Republican versus Democrat for me anymore. It is, to me, it's family values. And it's really hard for me because I grew up believing in these Christian ideals of taking care of the sick and taking care of the poor. And I don't see that happening with this Republican Party. And so I feel like I'm kind of in constant conflict.
It was the Democrats who weaponized using the lockdown, the government shutdown, to put the pressure on Republicans while they waited for the election to pass so that they could not vote yes on a continuing resolution that was put in under their prior administration. And they waited until after. And now elitist scumbags are saying that was the wrong choice because they want you to suffer. Because they don't care, because they've made their money, because they want to use any level of governmental pressure to get you, the plebs, to do what they want, because they're scumbags. Continue.
And I'm angry all the time, which isn't healthy at all. But I personalize everything now. When I see these terrible stories every day, I'm immediately mad at certain aunts, uncles, cousins who put him in power. And it's really hard. And I wish I could deprogram myself in some way, but I get really angry. And I've sent many emails to family right before the election saying, I'm begging you, here's the 10 reasons not to vote for this guy. Please don't. And I either got ignored by 90% of them or got truly insane responses.
Okay.
Well, there was that one glimmer of self-awareness where she said that she's programmed and needs to deprogram herself in some way because she's obviously emotionally unstable over politics. And, it's funny, she said, I had to lose these relationships, as if they were the ones that cut you off. No, you ended those relationships with your family members over politics. You are at fault for that. And then to name check family values, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. People say it's fair to criticize Erica Kirk because she's now in charge of Turning Point USA. It's one of the largest political organizations on the planet. You're in a position now where you're going to be criticized for the decisions you make as a leader in that organization.
Yes, you don't have a right to take over an organization that large and expect to not get at least some pushback. But it's
for
also,
the ways that you run the organization,
not how it came to be.
Right. And similarly, this woman is not just being loyal to her husband and admitting that she's emotionally biased because it's her husband. She's Jimmy Kimmel's producer as well, and she's also trying to fashion herself as a public figure on her own.
My other point was okay, your husband is taking on the president. Why? He's a Hollywood interviewer and comedian. That's not his job unless you're doing what Stephen Colbert said, which is just predictive programming, which is just teaching a bunch of boomers who don't have enough information how to think and feel about a topic because you've given them exactly one side of the argument and then you've presented nothing. I said the number one way you could rebuild any level of credibility, and it sounds crazy, do one positive thing that Trump has done once every week. Every 2 weeks. Present even a modicum of fairness to your interpretation of him. And look, I did a video this week talking about, after we did the stuff about Trump and Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift, and I did a video on the Trump administration invoking Batman to do videos for Customs and Border Patrol. And I was like, you know what? Politically, it makes perfect sense. He's using pop culture as a way to push the Overton window in a direction that he wants to see fit. But do I like it inherently? Not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. Because people were like, why is Warner Brothers not saying something about, he's using, they're recreating scenes from the Batman. Why aren't they saying anything about it? Well, because Warner Brothers is in the process of possibly being sold to another company. And what will that require? That will require regulatory approval from the Trump administration, theoretically, assuming that it gets done in the time frame in which he's still in office. So he's allowed to do this, and people are positing, without any proof, because we can't know for sure, but you can infer that it's possible that Warner Brothers is like, we're not going to rock the boat because the Trump administration will have something to say about whether we can sell our company the way we want to or not.
We have a 20 from St. Miles. According to Brett, if video games are a sport, Sean Connery must have been a super athlete if he could have killed a person with his thumb in the movie The Rock.
There you go.
I also wanted to add, it's so ironic how last night Jimmy Kimmel gets up on his show and breaks down into tears, which is typical of him. He's a crying puddle of tears all the time, about his lead in his live band dying. Now, that man's death, that's sad. That's a tragedy. However, no one should feel bad for you when you lose someone because you got up on your show and made a mockery of Erica's husband's death and then openly, brazenly lied about it.
When they said, when they say in these videos that they're uninformed, I said uninformed through doublespeak, like when you, and I had to pull up the clip while I was watching it, of your weasel words about the the MAGA gang claiming that the Charlie Kirk shooter was anything other than one of, you know what I'm saying? Like weasel words, half-truths, bullshit.
Yeah, and then performatively offers to give a public apology to Erica Kirk.
As long as she comes on the show.
She comes on his show to increase his ratings. And then he wants to talk about family values.
Oh, also, they told these stories about how his kids were heartbroken over the fact that he had been pulled off the air for 2 days, ignoring the fact that he was told to apologize and make a donation. He made the choice not to. That's his decision. It affected his ability to come back. It didn't matter anyways because they came back half a week later because people were firebombing TV stations. And they said that one of his children said they will sell their Labubu collection
to keep the family afloat.
And I just said, look, I trust zero of what you say. Maybe that happened. Maybe it didn't. You get zero sympathy from me.
She's talking about how she was like indoctrinated by her conservative family in Missouri as a child. Meanwhile, they're relaying this conversation they had with their children about the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel's show. And allegedly, their kids sat there and said, "Did Donald Trump do this?" And they said, "Yes, sweetie. Yes, Donald Trump did this to Daddy. He's trying to hurt our family in the country. He's trying to destroy everything. We're in a fascist dictatorship." And you're not trying to indoctrinate your children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.